According to an ACC collective, Tennessee shelled out some money to land David Sanders Jr. over the weekend. That's right. They shelled out money. An ACC collective suggested to On3 that David Sanders Jr., the 5-star tackle, is the highest paid player in the 2025 recruiting class. Tennessee is no stranger to opening up the checkbook to get certain players they want. We obviously know Nico Iamaleava. It's also true that in terms of just raw ratings, not value based on player or anything like that, not high, based on raw ratings, David Sanders is the highest rated Tennessee football recruit since Eric Berry of 2007. That's just facts. I'm not saying he's the best since him, but he is the highest rated. Those type of players, even if they're freshmen, you don't recruit them with the expectation that there's a learning curve. You recruit them with the expectation that they'll be ready to start immediately. Remember Trey Smith, guys? Tennessee started him immediately in 2017. Who's hoping to go win his 3rd Super Bowl soon. Eric Berry, I just brought him up. One of the worst decisions ever made that's unanimously accepted by Tennessee is that they didn't start Eric Berry his first game at Cal. Tennessee may have opened the checkbook to get David Sanders, but the question is, was it worth it? Now, this contradicts what we've heard about Tennessee and what their goals are on the NIL front. What we've heard and the stories we've heard is that they are focusing their NIL money on keeping players in-house, not going out and buying players, particularly through the transfer portal. That's why their transfer portal grades were so low this year. They didn't focus on it heavily. And I heard that's the same in recruiting. But what if they're a little bit more specific with certain guys? And with David Sanders, a guy you can sign out of high school, why go the transfer portal route if you think David Sanders is that good where he could start immediately? And maybe he could. You plug him in at right tackle. Look, there's not as much of a learning curve in this offense at tackle as there is at guard. That's just a fact, okay? So you can actually plug tackles in a little more easily. David Sanders, for those who don't remember, was very heavily entertaining going to Ohio State and almost didn't sign with Tennessee, but signed 2 days later. There was probably some negotiation going on, and we know that Ohio State is opening up the NIL checkbook. It seemed like Tennessee, there's another part to their NIL strategy. It's focused on keeping the players they have for chemistry, but it's also focused on, at a couple of specific positions, buying certain players to fill that void that can make an impact immediately. Now, I hear, doesn't he need to gain weight? Yes. All offensive linemen have to gain weight when they get on campus, guys. That's just a common thing. It's common that they have to gain weight. These ratings are based on the fact that people are projecting he can still be great if he gains weight. That's what the off-season conditioning program is for. He's already enrolled. He's already conditioning. He's going to be ready to go for spring. And then there's a summer conditioning program. So there's 2 conditioning periods to get him to the weight they want him to get at. So we're going to see how that goal goes. All right, I'm going to ask on the poll question though. And you guys tell me, was it worth it? Was it worth it for Tennessee to make David Sanders the highest paid 2025 recruit? Allegedly. And we're going to say yes and no. Was it worth it for Tennessee to make David Sanders Jr. the highest paid 2025 recruit? Allegedly. You guys let me know. I'm not going to say it was necessarily worth it but I can't say it wasn't because I haven't necessarily seen him play yet. And he fills an immediate void with John Campbell Jr. gone. John Campbell Jr. is leaving. And now Tennessee next year will have 2 players who were 5-star recruits starting at each tackle spot in Lance Hurd and David Sanders Jr. Again, David Sanders is reportedly extremely talented. Dylan, I get your point. Your issue is putting an 18-year-old kid at tackle against 21 to 22-year-old SEC edge rushers. There are a few rare exceptions, though, to that rule about 18 years old. Not many, but a few, and that's at most positions. If you guys remember, Darnell Wright was able to be serviceable at tackle immediately for Tennessee. I think he immediately took the right tackle job in 2019, and Tennessee's offense was able to go off. Trey Smith started and was an all-SEC guard as a freshman in 2017. on a really bad football team. I just brought up Eric Berry. David Sanders is the highest rated recruit since Eric Berry. Tennessee started Eric Berry by the second game. They shouldn't have started in the first game. I mean, they should have started in the first game. They were wrong not to, but they did start him by the second game. He became a freshman All-American and was elite. There are some players that can be so good at certain positions that they can start immediately. I do believe that they're banking on David Sanders being that. So I'm going to go ahead and play this game right now. I'll play it for you guys. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank. Tennessee expects David Sanders Jr. to be a star immediately as a true freshman. Bank on it.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions.
That's right. Bank on it. Tennessee expects David Sanders Jr. to start immediately. I'm dealing with a couple of questions on the message board. Orange Blood, that's a good question. Trey Smith wasn't higher rated than Berry. He was on ESPN and a couple of services. But when I do my ratings, overall highest rated, I look at it across the board. Trey Smith was actually only a 4-star on Rivals. Big miss. He should have been a 5-star. But if you take all the conglomerate ratings together, David Sanders is easily the most highly rated player Tennessee has gotten since Eric Berry. He is a unanimous 5-star. He and Darnell Wright are the only two unanimous 5-stars that Tennessee has gotten since Eric Berry. So, and by the way, Darnell Wright was ready to start as a freshman. Dylan brings up, if Lance Hurd is what we think he'll be, then he could easily have, Tennessee could easily have 2 bookend tackles for the next 2 seasons. Exactly. And that's what they're banking on. And truth be told, I don't think that's a bad play. When you think about that, that makes it worth opening up the checkbook. Tennessee goes 11-1 last year if they're fully healthy at tackle. Lance Hurd struggling and Lance Hurd being banged up and John Campbell struggling cost them against Arkansas. Just did. Even though Nico Iamaleava didn't play well in that game, that did cost them. So if you and by the way, David Speaks says Sanders will either be Trey Smith, Darnell Wright, or Wanya Morris, Drew Richmond. Well, David, 3 of the people you named were able to start as true freshmen for Tennessee. Say what you want about Wanya Morris. He started as a true freshman. He and Darnell Wright both started as true freshmen. And obviously, and Drew Richmond needed a year to figure it out, became good. And Trey Smith was a star early. Timothy McGee with his drops a super chat. Thank you, Timothy. Says, I don't see paying high school football players. They never did anything in college football. I think it should be more about producing on college football season. Timothy, I mostly agree with you. Because this does feel a little bit like before the NFL rookie salaries came in, when quarterbacks and first-round draft picks could hold out for a ton of money, and you just drop all this money on them as NFL teams, and then they turn out and let you down. I mean, we know the Jamarcus Russell situation. But I think Tennessee can't have 100% principled stance on everything they do right now as they build this program. So I think at this point, they're taking a chance, and they are openly taking a chance on David Sanders, just like they did with Nico when they offered him $2 million. They want to have an overall culture where players stay within the program, and then they want to plug holes where they can elsewhere, either on the recruiting trail or in the transfer portal. And when they plug the holes, they want to get the right guys, and if they can get a star, they want to get the star. I think to them it was worth getting a 5-star in David Sanders out of high school more than a 3-star or 4-star on the transfer portal that could plug in and fill the void, because his 5-star could be ready to start immediately. So he would fill this void, and you got him for a period of time, provided you keep upping his paychecks. So that's where I think they came from getting this player. I understand your point. I'm not here to dispute it, because to a certain degree, I agree, but I can't sit there and say a guy like David Sanders, who again is the highest rated Tennessee player since Eric Berry, and anybody that came close to him, Trey Smith, Darnell Wright, both were starters immediately. So nobody that's this highly rated, nobody on David Sanders' level of recruiting ratings has failed to start as a freshman and be effective as a starter at Tennessee. So they are taking a shot in the dark, yes, But if you look at David Sanders' ranking, and if you look at the history of Tennessee with players that highly rated, they work out. Timothy McGee adds, I am talking across the board, every team, mucho. Yeah, okay. I understand that. Yeah. And I think for the most part, Tennessee is doing it across the board, though. They're being a little more meticulous with their NIL spending. I think David Sanders is a very rare exception. Very similar to, quite honestly, if you want to think about it, he's an exception, kind of how Nico Iamaleava was an exception. They're not doing the Nico Iamaleava move anymore. I can just tell you that right now. So that was a thing of the past. They wanted their quarterback to make the splash, and they got it with Nico Iamaleava.